What's going on, everyone? Nick or Catalyst here. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are doing well. So sometime around the middle of last week, I was laying in bed watching some Twitch streams, some of them Battlefield related, some of them not. But as I was watching these streams for the better part of that afternoon, my curiosity got the better of me, and I thought to myself, what are Battlefield streaming numbers like? Now, being on YouTube, I can tell you without any doubt that views for Battlefield 5 are drastically down in comparison to any previous Battlefield, and that of course can be explained by the overall performance of the game and actions of DICE. But YouTube, as you know, is not primarily for streaming, it's primarily for video uploading and overall content creation. And it can be not the best representative of the popularity of the game because views can pile up over an infinite amount of time, and streaming is a very present medium. Now, Twitch, on the other hand, is a platform that everybody knows. It's meant for streaming and will give you a much cleaner representative of how the game is performing in terms of streaming popularity. Now, today, I'm going to mostly leave my opinion on the game out of the equation. This video is going to be strictly about presenting numbers and letting you all decide for yourself exactly how good or bad these numbers are. Some things to keep in mind for the video, however, this video will mostly be looking at and drawing conclusions from Twitch streams, that it is a large streaming platform and because it has the most information available. Mixer and YouTube both don't present a lot of information, and what they do present are stats that aren't relative to the video. Secondly, these stats can change daily, and this video is going to contain a lot of averages instead of exact numbers to reflect that. So if you come across this video at a later date and you go and you look at the averages and numbers have changed, it's not that this video is necessarily incorrect or inaccurate, it's just that these numbers are subject to change, and we are going to be looking at the numbers from screenshots I took on March 2nd. And finally, for this video, we are going to be using a website called Twitch Tracker, and the site only tracks streams that maintain 5 concurrent viewers or more to be tracked. So all the people streaming off their PlayStation 4s for 1 viewers, they aren't going to show up here. So how about those screenshots? Well, first let's take a look at Battlefield 5. When I took this screenshot, there were 413 live viewers across 70 channels, which placed it at 163rd on Twitch's leaderboards. Want to take a guess at what the #1 ranked game was? It's not too hard to guess, but League of Legends was the #1 ranked game at the time. The game averaged 557 viewers over the last 7 days. The peak viewership for the game was July 2nd, 2018, which I believe was one of the last few days of the Battlefield 5 alpha. The peak channels for the game was September 6, 2018, which was coincidentally the date the Battlefield 5 beta was released for everybody. These two stats aren't necessarily uncommon, seeing that your peak interest in the game will usually be pre-launch gameplay, launch day activities, and DLC drops, so there's nothing that's too out of the ordinary here. Moving on, there is an average of 68 live channels per week, with 8.2 viewers of those channels per week, which combined results inherently about 94,000 hours of watch time this past week alone. Now, give or take some number discrepancies per week, what all of this tells me is that despite the low viewer count per channel, the viewers that are watching for long periods of time, meaning that they are either committed to watching that one streamer, they are lurking the stream, or streamers are streaming for a lot of hours. Now, down to that timeline down below for average viewership, you can see the huge spike in viewers during that alpha, beta, and launch, with a rather sharp decline during December of 2018, dropping off from around 15,000 to 20,000 viewers to around 1,000 to 3,000 viewers, and the number stayed there until another small dip in February, where the viewership average dipped below 1,000 viewers for the first time, less than 3 full months after the game had released. From there, the numbers didn't reach an average of over 1,000 viewers again until this gigantic spike in viewership on March 25th, 2019. Any of you want to take a guess as to what caused this massive spike in viewers? That's right, Firestorm, the Battle Royale. The release of Firestorm ballooned Battlefield 5's viewership average to 50,000 average viewers, but do keep in mind, EA and DICE paid for a lot of sponsored streams from big names like Shroud and Dr. Disrespect, so these numbers came crashing back down a little over a week later once those streamers were either no longer under contract to promote the game mode or got sick of the game mode and stopped playing it. From there on out, the numbers slowly declined once again throughout much of the summer, where, if you remember, DICE and Battlefield 5 were in the middle of a raging dumpster fire. Chapter 4 of Tides of War was out with loads of hit detection issues, delayed content, and lackluster content overall, and as you can see by the rest of the timeline, it's a period of time in which the game never really recovered from. There is a small jump on October 31st when the Pacific was released, but it wasn't the comeback update that people seem to think it was, at least in terms of streaming numbers. If we take a look at the peak numbers, it makes things look a little bit better, as the numbers of course represent peak viewership in the 30,000 to 50,000 viewership range around launch, but you see that unbelievable churn around December and May, and of course that sharp rise in viewership when Firestorm came out. So we've seen Battlefield 5's numbers, but what about Battlefield 1's numbers, a game in which a lot of people agree is a more popular Battlefield game, and it's surprisingly very similar to Battlefield 5 in terms of performance. Taking a look at the stats for average viewership and ignoring the stats up top because those are recent stats and pretty much irrelevant, but what you'll see is a steady decline in every aspect through the first year of the game's life cycle, but you'll also see that Battlefield 1 never got as many views as Battlefield 5 did initially. Now, of course, these stats unfortunately don't go all the way back up to the launch date, but I still find that extremely interesting. I've thought about why this might be, and the first thing that comes to mind is that streaming was not as big as a medium back then as it is now, and the evidence to somewhat support that is Battlefield 4. According to Twitch Tracker, actually it had its peak viewership in 2018. That would be peak average viewership in 2018 with 51,000, a game that is nearly 5 years after its initial release date. You'll see on the timeline that Battlefield 1 held about 1,000 viewers, give or take some discrepancies, for nearly its entire first year of release, whereas Battlefield 5 was averaging a couple hundred viewers lower than that the rest of the year after February, the exception of course being the release of Firestorm. Now, what about the competition? Well, when you think about the competition to Battlefield in the first-person shooter market, my mind goes directly to Call of Duty, like I'm assuming a lot of your minds would. So let's take a look at the stats from Black Ops 4, which was the game that released the same year that Battlefield 5 was released. And what you'll see first and foremost is a lot more viewers throughout the last year, about 15,000 to 30,000 more viewers than Battlefield. And the crazy thing is that even after the new Call of Duty has launched, Black Ops 4 still averages 5,000 viewers daily, about 4,500 more than Battlefield 5 currently averages, which is mind-blowing. Or is it? Is Call of Duty just that superior to Battlefield? Well, although I think that Call of Duty overall delivers a much more complete package than Battlefield 5, offering zombies and a much better Battle Royale mode, which if I had to guess, I think that Blackout is probably what is drawing those 5,000 average daily viewers, I don't necessarily think that it's because Call of Duty is that much better than Battlefield. Now, before you get on my case, Battlefield 5 is not a well-received game by any stretch of the imagination, and that definitely plays into the numbers gap. Call of Duty is always going to have a numerical advantage. It's consistently the biggest FPS on the market every year. It's the branding, it's the marketing, and the sponsorships, a lot of things that Battlefield 5 has not done well recently, but even a year in which Call of Duty released Infinite Warfare and DICE released Battlefield 1, a year in which a lot of churn was seen from the Call of Duty franchise, Battlefield 1 still only was on par with the viewing numbers of Infinite Warfare, as you can see here, in a time of which, as we mentioned, streaming was not as popular as it is today. But there is something else that Call of Duty has that Battlefield does not that makes it more desirable to watch, and I know you're gonna laugh at me when I say this, but a competitive scene. Call of Duty has a dedicated competitive scene, and from somebody who is a competitive player in the dwindling competitive scene, and I know you can't see me, but I'm using quotation marks around competitive scene that Battlefield has left, if there is one thing that puts DICE at a disadvantage in terms of streaming numbers, I think it's this. A lot of the games that you'll find in the top 100 stream games on Twitch have some type of competitive element to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be an MLG-backed eSports event with LAN tournaments every other month. It could be as small as having a ranked mode in your game. Let's take a quick stroll through the top 100, shall we? We'll go, let's say, the top 25 individually, seeing which games have competitive scenes or competitive modes at the very least, and which ones don't, and then maybe we'll just go to a lightning round. This shouldn't take so long, so don't worry. 3, 2, 1, go. League of Legends, competitive scene, just chatting, ignoring this one, CSGO, competitive scene, Fortnite, competitive scene, Grand Theft Auto 5, no comp scene as far as I know, it's just a big ass game. Escape from Tarkov, no competitive scene, but it's competitive in nature, very streamer crazy at the moment. Dota 2, competitive scene, Hearthstone 2, competitive scene, Apex Legends, competitive mode, scene to follow, Overwatch, competitive mode and scene, World of Warcraft, don't think so. Minecraft, no. FIFA 20, ranked mode. PUBG, competitive scene. StarCraft, competitive scene. Rainbow Six, competitive mode and scene. Dead by Daylight, ranked mode. Rocket League, ranked mode and competitive scene. Slots. The fuck is slots? Modern Warfare, competitive scene. Arc, not sure. Twitch Presents, ignoring this one too. Super Smash Brothers, huge competitive scene. RimWorld, Rim Job. Teamfight Tactics, never heard of this game in my life, but it must be popular. There's your top 25 right there. A very big portion of the games I just listed either have some sort of competitive element to them or have a well-established esports scene. Just alone looking at first-person shooters, some of them in competition with Battlefield, CSGO, Apex Legends, Overwatch, Modern Warfare, Rainbow Six Siege, they all have competitive modes and do quite well. Now, I'm not trying to turn this into a why Battlefield needs esports video, but I'm just saying Battlefield has nothing to keep viewers interested apart from the main multiplayer, especially when the gameplay and game performance isn't good like it has been for a long time. Combined arms and war stories don't keep people interested, and the only other game mode that Battlefield 5 has is Firestorm, which has been left to die by DICE for whatever reason. People like to view the best players playing games that they themselves enjoy, so when you don't have competition, what would be your reason for watching a game when you can just play the game? Competition keeps people interested, and the closest thing that Battlefield has or has had to a competitive scene was ESL back in Battlefield 4, but I guess the ratings weren't good enough to keep it. But I see all the success competitive esports has commercially now. Why not try again? Just a thought. Oh, by the way, you want to know where Battlefield 5 sits on this list? All the way back here, with 3 and 5-year-old games. It's the following points that kind of make the original numbers make sense as to why they seem so low in comparison to other franchises, and it's not all because the game isn't performing well, although it has a decent amount to do with that. Either way, I wanted to present these numbers to you all to get your opinions as well. What do you think about all this? Why do you think that Battlefield has had such a hard time getting some streaming numbers, especially for a AAA franchise? Or is this about par for the course? Tell me what you think. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure that you do drop a like on it, share it around. All those things help me out tremendously. Subscribe if you're new here. Turn on post notifications if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, and if you want to support me in other ways, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button on your desktop or the link in the description. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Nick or Catalyst, and I will see you all another time.